this is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.
It's an Olympics you'll never forget. Prime time in Milan. The moments.
Chloe Kim with the gold medal flex.
The stars.
Ilya Malinin.
Out of this world.
The spectacle from beautiful northern Italy with very special guests every night of the Olympics. Experience the world's biggest show. Prime time in Milan. Tonight, 8/7 Central on NBC and Peacock.
The big game commercials are basically must-see TV. This year, Elf Cosmetics went all out with an absurdly funny telenovela called Melissa. It stars Melissa McCarthy, Nicholas Gonzalez, Itati Cantoral, and Elf Glow Reviver Lip Oil. The Elf Glow Reviver Lip Oil is an ultra-glossy tinted lip oil that nourishes, hydrates, and enhances your lips' natural color.
Watch the full episode of their new Elf novela on soyunbaño.com.
Ever wonder why so many people regain weight after stopping a GLP-1? Up to 40% of the weight lost can come from lean muscle. This weakens the body, slows metabolism, and makes it easier to put the pounds back on, creating a cycle of dependency. Prolon's 5-day fasting-mimicking diet offers a drug-free way to maintain results and support long-term metabolic health. In just 5 days, it activates fasting pathways to burn fat, protect muscle, and rejuvenate cells, all while letting you enjoy real food. Get 15% off plus a $40 bonus gift when you subscribe at prolonlife.com/iHeart. That's prolonlife.com/iHeart.
Over the last couple years, didn't we learn that the folding chair was invented by Black people because of what happened in Alabama?
The Montgomery Brawl.
This Black History Month, the podcast Selective Ignorance with Mandy B unpacks Black history and culture with comedy, clarity, and conversations that shake the status quo. The Crown Act in New York was signed in July of 2019, and that is a bill that was passed to prohibit discrimination based on hairstyles associated with race. To hear this and more, listen to Selective Ignorance with Mandy B from the Black Effect Podcast Network on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
1969. Malcolm and Martin are gone. America is in crisis. And at Morehouse College, the students make their move.
These students, including a young Samuel L. Jackson, locked up the members of the Board of Trustees, including Martin Luther King Sr. It's the true story of protest and rebellion in Black American history that you'll never forget. I'm Hans Charles.
I'm Menelik Lumumba.
Listen to The A Building on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
The Middle is supported by Journalism Funding Partners, a nonprofit organization striving to increase the sustainability of local journalism by building connections between donors and news organizations. More information on how you can support The Middle at listentothemiddle.com. Welcome to The Middle. I'm Jeremy Hobson, and I am flying solo this week. Not because we're doing a show about loneliness, although that could be the reason. It's actually because our house DJ Tolliver is off this week. He will be back next week. And the only consolation is that I get to announce we have new listeners this week on station WDET in Detroit, Michigan. So welcome to The Middle. And the topic this hour is loneliness. It turns out it is so connected to so many other issues in this country: technology, rapid social change, remote work, overwork, individualism, spirituality, the pandemic, and political division. The Surgeon General of the United States has declared loneliness an epidemic. A poll from the American Psychiatric Association this year found that 1 in 3 Americans struggles with feelings of loneliness at least once a week. And our loneliness problem affects just about everything, including our productivity, our relationships, and of course, our politics. So our question to you this hour: what can we do about America's loneliness epidemic? The number to call is 844-4MIDDLE. That is 844-464-3353. Or you can write to us at listentothemiddle.com. Let's meet our panel. Colorado Springs Mayor Yemi Mobolade is with us. Earlier this year, that city specifically asked residents to host parties and gatherings to get to know their neighbors and combat loneliness. Mayor Mobolade, welcome to The Middle.
Jeremy, it's a joy to be on your show. Thank you for having me.
And joining us from Asheville, North Carolina, David J., author of the book Relationality: How Moving from Transactional to Transformational Relationships Can Reshape Our Lonely World. David, great to have you on the show as well.
So fantastic to be here, and great to be with you, Mayor Yemi.
And David, before we get to the phones, actually, Mayor Mobolade, let me ask you about that initiative I just mentioned, having people host these gatherings and these parties in Colorado Springs. What kind of an effect did that have, and why did you do that?
Yeah, so I'm 18 months into this incredible job as mayor. Best job I've ever had, hardest job I've ever had. And most civic leaders know that we're in the business of responding to public safety issues. And my work is a lot of times it's responding after things have happened. And I wanted to make sure that we were also preventing issues, societal issues from happening. And it turns out that our mental health, our collective mental well-being is one of the best ways to ensure that we can pursue those upstream solutions. And we were also paying attention to the U.S. Surgeon General's report. He wrote a book on it. He has that 82-page report that loneliness being the biggest epidemic. Nextdoor sponsored a study that showed that knowing as few as 6 of your neighbors drastically improves your mental well-being and reduces anxiety. So you know what? We decided to start a neighboring movement. Let's address one of the greatest crises of our time by just being a community of great neighbors. Let's build a city of great neighbors and great neighborhoods by bringing people together and allowing them to form meaningful connections.
So that's about those in-person connections. But David J., a lot of people, when they think about loneliness, will probably turn their thoughts first to all the time we're spending online on, I guess, so-called social media, even though often it can be rather antisocial. But how do you think the increasing use of technology and social media plays into the loneliness epidemic?
So I think technology can be a beautiful way to connect, but a lot of times social media is part of the problem. I work a lot with these social media companies. You used to go into the Facebook offices in New York and it would say, "We connect people" in giant letters by the elevators. But actually what they're doing is optimizing for engagement. They want people to spend time on their phones, not to spend time with one another. And when companies are really precisely engineering to get people to look away from one another and towards our phones, it's only serving to make us lonely. Relationships happen in small places where people who get us show up on a regular basis. Places like the kind of neighborhood parties you're talking about, Mayor Yemi. And there is technology out there that helps us build those places. It's just not as profitable. So the technology that most of us are seeing is built on a really different model that is not helping us form relationships most of the time.
Yeah, as I was getting ready for this show, I was just thinking about social media in particular as something that is relatively new to us as a society and yet completely unnatural for us to be spending that much time just looking at a device and interacting with technology as opposed to with another human being. Mayor Mobolade, as we have this conversation, we know that a historically low number of Americans are involved in religion. You actually started a church in Colorado Springs. What kind of an effect does that have on loneliness, that lack of that kind of community, both in terms of the physical gathering and the spiritual connection that people may have?
That's a great question. And I know you both are familiar with the concept of blue zones and the regions in our country that people live the longest.
People live longer, right?
Yeah, live longest. When you study or you look at those factors, spirituality is one of them. In fact, I've given the pastors in my community the charge to encourage people to come back to church, because since COVID, people stopped attending churches and started watching online. And it turns out that's not enough, even in terms of your spiritual development. When you take away the community aspect of spirituality, that really has a huge impact on our quality of living. And so turns out that spirituality, I don't really care whatever it looks like, but being a part of a spiritual community, when you study the world places that are healthiest and live the longest, spirituality is a big part of it. So that's one of the strategies that we're looking at in our city. We also call them third places, gathering places, third spaces when you're not at work and you're not at home. Where are these third places in a community where people gather? And that also helps foster social connection. And churches are great places for third spaces.
I think the other secret in the blue zones is often olive oil. Very good olive oil. Maybe on some island in Italy or Greece. Let me ask you one more thing, David J., before we go to the phones, and they are lighting up right now. You write in your book, Relationality, that loneliness is like a lack of sleep or lack of exercise, but the harms stretch from a breakdown in our individual cells to a breakdown in our democracies. Explain what you mean by that.
So I did a lot of research into just how many things are impacted by our capacity for a healthy relationship. And I think rather than talking about loneliness, I want to just talk about how many things get better when we form healthy relationships. Our mental health, our physical health, our educational outcomes, creativity. There's research that shows that there's almost nothing better for economic mobility. We get scientific breakthroughs with better relationships. And there's a lot of research that shows that the health of our democracies is really tied to exactly, Yemi, what you were talking about, how well we know our neighbors.
Right.
How well we feel like we're in community, in the messiness of community, really bubbles up to the difference between democracy and what a lot of people monitoring democracy around the world are concerned about now is authoritarianism.
That's good.
A very interesting point, and of course ties into the things that we've been covering for many, many months now. Let's go to the phones. And again, you can reach us at 844-4MIDDLE. That's 844-464-3353. Ryan is in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Ryan, welcome to the Middle. Go ahead.
Hey, thank you so much for doing this topic tonight. There are millions of people sitting alone with these exact concerns, and you're doing a great public service by addressing this issue. I'd like to share an anecdote as a former teacher of 15 years related directly to this. I started teaching before smartphones came out in 2007. I recently left the profession, so I've sort of seen a change over that decade and a half. One of the things that stands out most pronouncedly is that with the introduction of smartphones, we started seeing an increasing number of middle and high schoolers turning to social media and dating apps to find what they believed was more ideal interactions, more ideal or more attractive people to date, people who had more exact political or social perspectives on the world. And we tried communicating with these children. Life is about developing relationships with people who aren't an exact match. You'll never find an exact match. And I'm very concerned that the younger generations believe that highly personalized matches exist out there. One young lady that I had a one-on-one conversation with, she had declining mental health, and we asked her what's going on, and she said, well, I don't really have any friends here. All my friends are online. In fact, my best friend is in Oregon. And we're like, but why don't you make friends with your neighbors? What about the people in the lunchroom? What about the people in the classroom? And she said, well, they have a different opinion than me, or they are somehow different from me. And, life is all about compromises and finding middle ground with people who are not exactly like you. And I just feel like social media is sending an antithetical message about what life is going to really be like.
Ryan, thank you so much for that. David J., sort of that search for perfection because you have access to everybody out there as opposed to just the people around you.
I will say I grew up in the LGBT community. One of the things that was really beautiful there was that there was the sense that you didn't need to perfectly match someone. You just needed them to get some part of you that maybe the rest of the world didn't get. And once that was true, once you had that avenue of connection, it was almost good for them to be different, right? It was good to be connected to people who really come from different perspectives, different life experience, so long as we have that thread that we can connect around. And so a lot of my relational life has been finding all these different communities where I connect deeply around different facets of myself, rather than trying to find a person or a community that matches me exactly. And I'll also say what you were talking about, phones is really important. I'm involved with the organization Fair Play that's campaigning for phone-free schools. I think that figuring out how we can have some distance from this technology to create space where people connect is really important.
You know, it's interesting. The idea of of taking phones out of schools is actually something that we've seen on both the Republican side and the Democratic side. Leaders in both parties seem to be on board with that. I just want to mention that John in Chicago is writing to us saying, you need to know the other side of the lonely coin is the selfish, self-centered, uninterested, bored, unfocused side. If you don't volunteer, you don't give of yourself. If you don't just step up and volunteer, then your selfishness makes you become lonely. Loneliness is a prison of your own making. You can write to us at listentothemiddle.com, and we'll be right back with more of your calls on The Middle.
It's an Olympics you'll never forget. Prime time in Milan. The moments.
Chloe Kim with the gold medal flex.
The stars.
Ilya Malinin.
Out of this world.
The spectacle from beautiful northern Italy with very special guests every night of the Olympics. Experience the world's biggest show. Prime time in Milan, tonight 8/7 Central on NBC and Peacock.
Welcome to the A Building. I'm Hans Charles.
I'm Menelik Lumumba. It's 1969. Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr. had both been assassinated, and Black America was at a breaking point. Rioting and protests broke out on an unprecedented scale.
In Atlanta, Georgia, at Martin's alma mater, Morehouse College, the students had their own protest. It featured two prominent figures in Black history, Martin Luther King Sr. and a young student, Samuel L. Jackson.
To be in what we really thought was a revolution. I mean, people were dying.
1968, the murder of Dr. King, which traumatized everyone.
The FBI had a role in the murder of a Black Panther leader in Chicago.
This story is about protest. It echoes in today's world far more than it should, and it will blow your mind.
Listen to the A Building on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is Ryder Strong, and I have a new podcast called The Red Weather.
It was many and many a year ago in a kingdom by the sea.
In 1995, my neighbor, Anna Trainer, disappeared from a commune.
It was hard to wrap your head around. It was nature and trees and praying and drugs.
So no, I am not your guru.
And back then, I lied to my parents, I lied to police, I lied to everybody.
There were years, Ryder, where I could not say your name.
I've decided to go back to my hometown in Northern California, interview my friends, family, talk to police, journalists, whomever I can, to try to find out what actually happened.
Isn't it a little bit weird that they obsess over hippies in the woods and not the obvious boyfriend?
They have had this case for 30 years.
I'll teach you sons of to come around here with my wife. Boom, boom.
This is The Red Weather. Listen to The Red Weather on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
14 years in prison for killing a young woman. A 15-year sentence for a crash that caused 3 deaths. 12 and a half years for killing a child and critically injuring her mother. All true stories, all caused by marijuana-impaired drivers. No matter what you tell yourself, if you feel different, you drive different. So, if you're high, just don't drive. Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Segregation in the day, integration at night.
When segregation was the law, one mysterious Black club owner had his own rules.
We didn't worry about what went on outside. It was like stepping in another world.
Inside Charlie's Place, Black and white people danced together. But not everyone was happy about it.
You saw the KKK?
Yeah, they was dressed up in their uniform.
The KKK set out to raid Charlie, take him away from here.
Charlie was an example of power. They had to crush him.
From Atlas Obscura, Rococo Punch, and Visit Myrtle Beach comes Charlie's Place. A story that was nearly lost to time. Until now. Listen to Charlie's Place on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is The Middle. I'm Jeremy Hobson. If you're just tuning in, The Middle is a national call-in show. We are focused on elevating voices from the middle, geographically, politically, philosophically, or maybe you just want to meet in the middle. This hour, we're asking you, what can we do to solve America's loneliness epidemic? The number to call in is 844-4MIDDLE. That is 844-464-3353. or you can write in at listentothemiddle.com. I'm joined by Colorado Springs Mayor Yemi Mobolade and David J., author of Relationality, How Moving from Transactional to Transformational Relationships Can Reshape Our Lonely World. Before we get back to the phones, the U.S. Surgeon General Vivek Murthy, as we said, has characterized this as an epidemic. Here he is in a public service announcement about loneliness.
Loneliness is far more than just a bad feeling. Being socially disconnected, which can range from feeling alone to being isolated, is bad both for individual and societal health. Research shows that loneliness and isolation are associated with a greater risk of heart disease, dementia, stroke, depression, anxiety, and premature death. In fact, lacking connection can increase the risk of premature death to levels comparable to smoking daily.
That is just unbelievable. Mayor Mobolade, what can the government do to combat loneliness, aside from what you have already talked about doing in Colorado Springs and getting people to just get together with their neighbors?
Well, that data point of the health risk of loneliness as bad as smoking 50 cigarettes a day is alarming. I mean, one of the first things we can do as government leaders and civic leaders is that we have a bully pulpit. We have a mic, a constant mic in front of us. So I get to help sound the alarm on that data point and the risk of if we continue to go that route. And here's the thing, Jeremy and David, I know you both get this, but a lot of the root cause of our societal crisis, whether it's domestic abuse, teenage suicide, homelessness, they all stem from an unhealthy mind. And a lot of it is connected to the epidemic of loneliness. As government leaders, one of the things I've tried to do too, as a government leader, one of the things I've tried to do is to connect the problem with the solution and to also show that when we go upstream and tackle these issues, by the way, it saves the city money, believe it or not. Mm-hmm. So one of the areas as mayor, I have to address is my code enforcement team. So when homes look abandoned and the yard is overgrown, I mean, there's somebody that typically lives there that is lonely. So as we've activated a city of great neighbors, the stories that are coming out of this movement are just unbelievable. People are going, I had no idea. So as they meet their fellow neighbors, guess what? Neighbors are getting to know each other. Neighbors are now taking ownership of their own neighborhood flourishing. And guess what? I don't have to send code enforcement to that home to take care of that abandoned looking home. The benefits are many, but it takes the courage of government leaders saying, traditionally, my work is responding to issues. You know what? This time we're going to go upstream and take this crisis and this call to action seriously.
And David, that's on the government side. You, I know, have worked a lot with private companies on this issue. What role does the private sector play in combating the loneliness epidemic, even aside from just social media companies?
So I think it's really interesting because there are really magical things that can happen when you switch from being transactional to being relational, from building an audience to investing in a community. So I think about the impact on the entertainment industry of having a really robust fan community. I think about the impact in real estate of having a thriving local community. It's not that there isn't a strong economic benefit to investing in relationships between people. It's not that we don't know how to do that. It's that often companies have to release control a little bit. They have to release control to the communities they're building, and they're uncomfortable doing that. But when I've seen companies be able to do that successfully, they can make really extraordinary, creative things happen.
Let's go to Eugene, who's in White Marsh, Maryland. Eugene, welcome to The Middle. Go ahead.
Hi. I just wanted to say on this particular issue, it's a great issue to talk about, but you have you can have a person that's married or have a girlfriend or boyfriend, and they can feel lonely, and you can have a single person that doesn't have a spouse, and they never feel lonely. I think a lot has to do. It starts internally. I think when you find joy in doing things, whether it's exercising, whether it's reading books, when you find joy, I think you're going to feel happy, and you're going to naturally gravitate towards people that are like you. And yes, that can happen in church as well. But I really think you have to. It starts internally. I don't think you can define your joy or your feeling of self-worth from connection or needing to connect with somebody and make that the paramount way to determine how happy you are. I think it starts internally, and then from internal, I think you make connections. But you have to have happiness within yourself first.
Eugene, you sound like somebody who's figured it out then. Do you not feel lonely very much?
Well, I think for me, I can't give myself any credit. I think for me, from a spiritual point of view, I think you have to have a belief system where you believe in something other than yourself or other than what human beings can do. And I think when you're connected to just feeling that there's a lot of things you can't control, but the one thing that you do have a certain amount of control over is how you approach things. Things happen. And so when you have those bad days, and look, we've all had them, I've had them too, I try and reflect and see what my role was, but also know too that the sun is going to come out tomorrow. I mean, bad days are going to happen, but good days are going to happen, and I think we have to keep that in mind. Weather the storms, and you will have good days, but you're going to have bad days too.
Eugene, thank you very much for that. Mayor Mobolade, your thoughts on Eugene's points there?
Well, one of the things I'd like to point out is it's okay. I'm going to deviate a little bit from this point, but I don't know if you guys have heard of the phrase "lone wolves die." And I know that when we talk about loneliness, it's really that looks different for everyone. To Eugene's point, but the essence and the crux of this conversation and the meat of it is the same. That lone wolves die. At the end of that, and that phrase means that humans by nature, we are biologically adapted to live in the context of community with other people. And whatever that looks like, if we don't have that leads to this, maybe not physical death like in the wild, but there is an element of death within us. So whether that's that community, whether it's your colleagues at work, whether it's in a dating relationship, a marriage relationship, a parent, a child, neighbors. I just think the essence of that is we are wired to live in the context of community of others.
Are you saying are we pack animals like dogs?
We are. That's something else. Something else I wanted to say. Like humans are pack animals. I mean, truly, we are biologically disposed to just be in relationship with other people, and that's how we conquer. That's how we,
Kaylin is on the line from Sisters, Oregon. Kaylin, welcome to the middle. Go ahead.
Hey, thank you. And full disclosure, I used to work for David at Center for Humane Technology. Hi, David. Wow. I run a community building nonprofit in my community, and I wanted to first just acknowledge the focus on neighborhoods. I think that's something that we've really been honing in on as well. Even in a small town like ours of 3,400 people, we're realizing that, it's easy to slip through the cracks, and especially for the most vulnerable, it can be hard to build community. And one of the ways that we're trying to bring those people out and create a first point of contact is by going almost to like a micro level of community building, focusing on neighborhoods. We have a program where we, similar to what the mayor was sharing in Colorado Springs, we offer $150 stipends to people who want to host their own block party or neighborhood gathering as a way of just getting to know that first space in your community. What's better place than when you walk out your front door to check the mail or something like that. But even with all of our programs, my question is, we know that no matter what events we host, the people that are most vulnerable to social isolation are the ones that are least likely to show up. And so if we're, really trying to move the needle on this, how do we reach the people that we know are the most prone to social isolation and loneliness? How do we convince them that it is worth not being lonely?
Let's take that to your former colleague, David J. David, how do you reach the people who are the least likely to connect in that way?
First of all, great to hear from you, Kellen. And I want to just really congratulate one thing you said, which is there was a dollar sign in there. I think one of the really important things when it comes to addressing loneliness is it's not that we don't know what to do. It's that we don't resource the people who do this work, the people, places, and practices. And so I'm just really grateful that you and also you, Mayor Yemi, are helping support this really, really critical work. And I think the question of how to invite people out of loneliness, building those spaces, building those block parties is a really important first step. And then I think it becomes, okay, how do we have a wide range of these local gatherings and think about how to meaningfully invite people into them. Whether it's a local game store that someone can show up to that's really welcoming, or a church, or a music group that is appealing to someone who's elderly, having that range and then thoughtfully extending those invitations is really important.
Mayor Yemi, your thoughts?
Yeah, I also want to follow up with Colin's comment. One of the things that our churches did was, actually, we had a benefactor in town who gave a good sum of money that we used to activate, that we gave to churches as an incentive for them to give money to be able to host neighborhood gatherings. And with the funding that we received, we had stickers and T-shirts. But one of the most important tools that we used were magnets that sat on people's fridges, and then on magnets, your house is in the middle. And then around it are the different homes around you, but they're blank. And the exercise was to try to write the names of your neighbors. So if you can equip the host with the tools to actually take the lead, that really moves the needle. So a lot of our hosts took it seriously and began to invite neighbors that were living in their neighborhood, even sometimes some of the most isolated neighbors. They took the lead and knocked on the door and said, "Hey, we're having a neighborhood party." And sometimes they had to say, "I'm really embarrassed. I've lived in this neighborhood for 10 years and I don't know your name. Would you be willing to come to our neighborhood gathering?" And they were surprised to see how many people actually responded. One of the most consistent things we heard over and over where people actually came. We were surprised people actually came.
So we're talking there about neighbors in their houses. Listen to this comment from Jim, who wrote into us from Taos, New Mexico, who says, "We have decimated our cities and our neighborhoods and our communities in order to make room for cars. It is cars and the community design that results from car culture that keeps us separated." That actually is something that has come up in a number of articles I've read about loneliness. I go to you, David J., on that. How does car culture fit into this problem in this country?
So part of how we form relationship is just a matter of statistics, right? How many people are we interacting with every day? How many little moments of shared interaction do we have that could turn into relationship? And cars just cut off a lot of those moments. They keep us isolated and we move around. They result in communities that are parking lots rather than parks, where we are driving rather than walking down the sidewalk. So I think they just remove so much of the context where we can meet new people or interact with people we already know.
Amelia is with us from Ann Arbor, Michigan. Amelia, welcome to The Middle. Go ahead.
Hello. I was very isolated for a very long time in my life, but in the last year, I've found a third place, and I've started sitting at a bar once a week, which has been more effective for me in my happiness than years and years of therapy. And I've been trying to make more connections with people, but I'm often finding that other people aren't necessarily reflecting effort back at me. And I think part of the reason why being at the bar was helpful wasn't the social interaction itself, but that it recalibrated my sense of like what was normal. Because I think people get such a filtered version of, everyone's curated life on social media online. We see all these people who are perfect, and we can never live up to that expectation. And so people are afraid to share themselves because they know that they're not perfect. But
when you talk about a third place, Amelia,
any connection at all.
You mean a third place besides your home or your office?
Yes.
Right. And you find that is different enough that that's important for you to have that in your life?
Very much so, yes.
Okay. Amelia, thank you for that. Mayor Mobolade, what do you think about that? Having this, whether it's a bar or a coffee shop or the neighborhood park or something like that, a place where you can interact with people in a way that I guess is not as structured as it would be in your workplace. And often these days, if you go into a lot of workplaces, there's nobody there because they're all working remotely.
Amelia, I just want to comment and applaud your courage. Well done. I love your story, and that's inspiring to me too. what Amelia is talking about is very near and dear to my leadership. Before becoming mayor, I'm actually a small business owner. I created 2 third places in my city. We actually call them meeting houses. It was our way of retelling the story of third place, a public house. In America, we know them as pubs. We call them pubs. When you look at the origin of pubs, they were public houses. There were third places. There were public places where accidental collision happened. So these are gathering places where people are moving about, and you'd be surprised at the conversation. Some of the best conversations I've had, both as a customer and a business owner, is in third places. So third places is a big part of the solution when we talk about loneliness and social isolation. And that's the next campaign. That's one of the future campaign for us. We started with 1,000 neighborhood gathering, and we're having conversations around promoting the more third places in the communities. There are bars, there are cafes, there's coffee shops, there are churches, there are barbershops, but every one of them has a role to play in terms of moving us from isolation back into a community. So kudos, Amelia.
Let's go to Larissa, who is in Aurora, Illinois. Larissa, welcome to the middle. Tell us what you think.
So one of the things that I have found throughout my life is that I'm in the middle of a crowd. So I'm at these social gatherings. I'm participating as a volunteer, but I don't fit in. I'm being talked over, and in some ways, being out in those events and not feeling seen is even worse. It makes the loneliness even sharper. And, I think that people don't do a good enough job listening. It's not just waiting for your opportunity to talk. It's listening to other people who are there.
Yeah. Interesting point. David J., what do you think about that?
First of all, I really hope for you that you can find places where you do feel seen. I think having a range of places out there and being able to find places where a part of ourselves that feels lonely can be seen is so, so important. And I think the point you make about listening is also really important. A practice that has been, and this also speaks to our early call, practice that I think has been really powerful for me is just reflecting on what kind of relationship am I excited to invite in my life? What am I curious about? Is there a particular kind of person where if they start saying a life experience, I'm going to light up and let them know that I'm excited to connect with them? Because being ready to light up and connect with people, being ready, knowing who we really are ready to listen to is a really good way to know how to invite relationship into our life.
Again, our number is 8444-MIDDLE. That is 844-464-3353. I'd still love to hear from somebody Gen Z on this topic. We'll see if they call coming up on The Middle.
It's an Olympics you'll never forget. Prime time in Milan. The moments.
Chloe Kim with the gold medal flex.
The stars.
Ilya Malinin.
Out of this world.
The spectacle from beautiful northern Italy with very special guests every night of the Olympics. Experience the world's biggest show. Prime time in Milan. Tonight, 8/7 Central on NBC and Peacock.
Welcome to the A Building. I'm Hans Charles.
I'm Menelik Lumumba. It's 1969. Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr. had both been assassinated, and Black America was at a breaking point. Rioting and protests broke out on an unprecedented scale.
In Atlanta, Georgia, at Martin's alma mater, Morehouse College, the students had their own protest. It featured 2 prominent figures in Black history, Martin Luther King Sr. and a young student, Samuel L. Jackson.
To be in what we really thought was a revolution. I mean, people were dying.
1968, the murder of Dr. King, which traumatized everyone.
The FBI had a role in the murder of a Black Panther leader in Chicago.
This story is about protest. It echoes in today's world far more than it should, and it will blow your mind.
Listen to The A Building on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is Ryder Strong, and I have a new podcast called The Red Weather.
It was many and many a year ago in a kingdom by the sea.
In 1995, my neighbor, Anna Trainer, disappeared from a commune.
It was hard to wrap your head around. It was nature and trees and praying and drugs.
So no, I am not your guru.
And back then, I lied to my parents, I lied to police, I lied to everybody.
There were years, right, where I could not say your name.
I've decided to go back to my hometown in Northern California, interview my friends, family, talk to police, journalists, whomever I can, to try to find out what actually happened.
Isn't it a little bit weird that they obsess over hippies in the woods and not the obvious boyfriend?
They have had this case for 30 years.
I'll teach you sons of to come around here and my wife. Boom, boom.
This is The Red Weather. Listen to The Red Weather on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
I actually drop better when I'm high. It heightens my senses, calms me down. If anything, I'm more careful. Honestly, it just helps me focus.
That's probably what the driver who killed a 4-year-old told himself. And now he's in prison. You see, no matter what you tell yourself, if you feel different, you drive different. So if you're high, just don't drive. Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Segregation in the day, integration at night.
When segregation was the law, one mysterious black club owner had his own rules.
We didn't worry about what went on outside. It was like stepping in another world.
Inside Charlie's place, black and white people danced together. But not everyone was happy about it.
You saw the KKK?
Yeah, they was dressed up in their uniform.
The KKK set out to raid Charlie, take him away from here.
Charlie was an example of power. They had to crush him.
From Atlas Obscura, Rococo Punch, and Visit Myrtle Beach comes Charlie's Place, a story that was nearly lost to time. Until now. Listen to Charlie's Place on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is The Middle. I'm Jeremy Hobson. This hour, we're asking you, how can we solve America's loneliness epidemic? You can call us at 844-4MIDDLE. That's 844-464-3353. I'm joined by Colorado Springs Mayor Yemi Mobolade and author David J. His book is called Relationality. And before we go back to the phones, gentlemen, we hear a lot about the lonely young man in this country, both the problems they face and sometimes the problems they cause. The psychiatrist Jordan Peterson, who is very influential and also very polarizing, we should say, considers himself an advocate for young men. Here he is in an interview with Piers Morgan.
People have been after me for a long time because I've been speaking to disaffected young men. You know, what a terrible thing to do that is. I thought the marginalized were supposed to have a voice. It's very difficult to understand how demoralized people are. And certainly many young men are in that category. All these men who are alienated, it's like they're lonesome and they don't know what to do, and everyone piles abuse on them.
Mayor Mobolade, how do you see the loneliness among young men affecting our politics right now? And did it have much to do with the re-election of Donald Trump?
It's really hard to comment on what has contributed to the re-election of Donald Trump, because this last election cycle has really, I felt the president-elect had pulled Republicans and independents, but that's a whole different story. But I know there is something called the epidemic of male loneliness. We know that's a real thing. I mean, and it starts with young men. And I think what contributes to it has to do with what we're talking about. I think social media plays a part in it, but also biology also plays a part in it as well. I think as men, you know, we naturally have ego, and that even starts at a young age. I think when women and young girls by nature, I have a young daughter, so even watching my two young sons and their social relationship with my young daughter, you can see young girls naturally communicate. It's so fun to watch how they come together, they talk, they communicate. And as young men, it's just different. So some of it is biological. And then you give them devices, and that just makes it even worse. And so some of that is on us as parents to ensure that we are teaching our young men to engage with with adults and other young men as well.
David, what do you think? Is there something different about young men and loneliness versus other groups?
Growing up, a lesson that I received is that masculinity is about showing up. It's about knowing how to show up for the people in our lives. It's about knowing how to show up for the communities around us. And it's been amazing as I've done work across the political spectrum. I've found people who that idea of masculinity really resonates with. And so when I hear about this epidemic of loneliness, I hear, okay, here are people who want to be showing up for people around them, for communities around them, and maybe they're not invited. Maybe they don't know how. And so I think it comes back to that question of invitation. What are the spaces that these people can be invited into where they can do the showing up? They can do, I think, the care that we need to feel connected to the communities around us.
Let's go back to the phones. I ask for young people and I get them. And here's 18-year-old Charles in Denver. Charles, welcome to the middle. Go ahead.
Hey there. Thanks for having me on. I was just listening to a previous point by, I think her name was Amelia, who said going out to the bar once a week was incredibly helpful for encouraging her communication skills. And I think that that's something that is kind of overlooked a lot when it comes to improving one's affinity for social interaction. And that's that, when you initially think of that, you think of, oh, I have to go out and I have to talk with other people. And I think that that's definitely part of it. But another part of it is just being in a place where there are other people. And that's a bar, that's a coffee shop, that's a library, that's school. And especially since COVID happened a couple of years ago, everybody was inside. We had no reference point of how to act in social situations, which leads to people becoming more polarizing because they're thinking, oh, I'm different in this way to this person, therefore we might not be able to form a relationship. And I think that going out and just spending time at a place where you can see other people interacting does really, really well for kind of mending that crack and understanding of how people relate to each other.
Do you find that your people who are your age, your peers, agree with you about that it's not all about life online and that you should go out and interact with people in person?
I have a very different view than a lot of people. I mean, I bring that up quite a lot. And I myself don't have social media. I think that it really does not, it not do wonders for any part of my life, and it only hindered it. So I deleted all of it like many years ago. And I encourage a lot of my friends to do the same, but they don't, because that's how they think that they're connecting with other people. And I say think, because I don't think that that's connecting with other people. And when I point that out, they think, I think that they obviously can see that. I think that it's pretty difficult to be like, well, I'm talking to this person technically, not really.
Right. Charles, thank you so much. Really, really great point there. I want to go to an email that's come in from Maureen in Chicago who says, I lived in my neighborhood for 3 years and really knew very few people until I got a dog. I've developed so many relationships since I know what's going on in the neighborhood. Mayor, I totally agree with that. I think having a dog, you start talking to random people that you would never before.
No, that's absolutely true. As someone who's on the dog, and also kids. I mean, they're great conversation starter. I mean, dogs play in the dog park, kids play. And then as the parents and the owners stand there, it's natural to have a conversation because you have something in common. So that's actually a wonderful strategy.
Let's go to Rick, who's in Houston, Texas. Rick, welcome to the middle. Go ahead.
Hey, thanks for taking my call. So I grew up in a traditional family, very rural area. Siblings. I had a stay-at-home mother. She kept us connected to all the activities in the community. We now live in a time where most families, they don't have the freedom to economically have someone at home who's keeping people connected. The geographic area of the United States is amazingly large, and therefore its economic area is also very large, and there's so many opportunities that that come, and sometimes the right opportunity, just what you can find and what works well for your career and your talents, it pulls you very far away from the community you grew up in. And most people, small communities feed large cities. Cities are monsters that eat small communities' resources. And we're all, many of us are disconnected from where we came from. Conversely, when I often go to Ireland, I see people who are geographically locked within their culture that they may choose to stay in the European area, economic area.
Mm-hmm.
But oftentimes when I'm going from the airport on a bus to the hotel, I see these pockets of communities co-located with a school and a grocery store, and they walk everywhere with their children.
So just the sheer size of the cities, and of course you're calling from Houston, which is so big, and goes on for such a long stretch. Mayor Mobolade, what do you think about that? Just the size, the lack of walkability in many of these places.
I mean, yeah, and by the way, I have family in Houston as well, and I was just there over Thanksgiving. So, I as a city official, I think city design plays a fact in it. We were talking earlier about the role of cars. I think how neighborhood designs are really important. City design and how walkable is your city as you think about. Designing a city around people walking in masses of people. When you think about neighborhoods and building homes, is a focus on garages or is it focused on front porch? My wife and I have intentionally chosen to live in the more historic part of the city because it's got front porches. So the focus is not the garage where people pull into the garage and the focus is the front porch. We get to sit on our front porch, we get to park on the street because we want that accidental collision. We want to be able to talk to our neighbors because it's possible to live next to your next door neighbor and not even know who they are. And so I do think that has a role to play. I am proud of the developers and the builders in my city that are actually building homes that are mimicking the homes from the late 1800s and early 1900s.
With a front porch. With a front porch. Like it's like New Orleans in the middle of Colorado.
Yes. We're seeing a return. We're seeing even in terms of how we think about design. So that's a very important piece of this conversation.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
David, your thoughts?
And I want to tease out one thing you mentioned that I think is really, really important, which is transitions. These moments when people move. It's not that moving means that we're lonely. Whether or not we move, we're going to go through really significant transitions in our life, whether it's graduating college, retiring, having your first kid. And often these transitions, when the strategies we used to use to build relationships no longer work, are a time when people sort of fall off and become lonely. So thinking about the extra support we can give people when they go through these critical moments of transitions, the sort of welcoming into a new place or a new phase of life, is, I think, one really important part of how we combat loneliness.
Amy is in Pittsburgh. Amy, welcome to the middle. Go ahead.
Hello. Yes. Yes, I called in. I was remarking that often when there are community events, I've been one of those people who doesn't show up, and I don't go. And I was just thinking about something that I did on purpose because I was just dreading loneliness. In particular, a very high stakes night that happened in early November, which you might guess what it is. Election night. I didn't want to be alone. So it was easier for me to plan to go all the way to Boston from Pittsburgh to be with someone who I'm very close with there to watch the election. Because I just thought it's almost like if it was a holiday, you don't want to be alone. So I did that. And what you may find interesting is that, my friend actually was working on election day. So I particularly went out and I went to the Freedom Trail and the end of my evening was to end at a tavern, particularly where the founding fathers had been colluding for the revolution. And I thought this would be really interesting. I'll go there and talk to people. And I was at two places. They had a policy that was no talking about the election, not to be talked about. Isn't that funny?
You were trying to not be lonely, and they wouldn't let you. There was a policy that said you couldn't do it. Amy, thank you for calling and telling us that. Let me get to Robert, who's in Raleigh, North Carolina. Hi, Robert. Welcome to the middle. Go ahead.
Hey, how you doing? I'm a technical director in theater, and I spent 4 good years teaching at a small college outside of D.C., College of Southern Maryland. And the person I worked for was just a savant. He kind of powerhouse, and I heard people talking about the community. The community programs and stuff. He would not only we would do shows as per normal, but like the way that he would just insert the kids into community events kind of effortlessly, even if it was hey, we're doing the kids show. Can y'all go down and do like half of it, like at this, barbecue thing, like, and just kind of, being present in the community kind of allowed the kids to kind of, reach out to a bunch of different folks, and having a place like to work is also kind of, cathartic, I guess. 'Cause we don't turn people away if you want to come make lollipops or candy canes. We actually had a student who, this girl showed up and she just wanted to work. So we kind of all worked together, and, it was about 3 months, she wasn't in the department. She just kind of was around, and come to find out, her father had actually passed away, and she was going through this whole thing, and she just wanted to be with people. And she was like, it was nice to just come in and, kind of leave her stuff at the door and be a part of something, be
a part of the community there. Robert, thank you for that. I'm going to sneak one more call in here. Tommy in Chicago is with us. Hi, Tommy. Go ahead.
Hey, I hear you guys talking about all these social engagements for the young people, and I really applaud it. My experience has been most of the young kids I know are not wanting to engage. I work as a doorman in a hotel downtown Chicago, and people are always have their heads in their gadgets. I ask them if they need directions. They look at me like I'm offending them. They give them a cell phone and Google Maps, and they're Christopher Columbus. It's like they don't want to interact with you. Oh, I know where I'm going. Leave me alone. It's crazy.
Yeah, so that they're just not interested.
They're not. They feel like they have all the answers that they need, is how it feels to me. Why am I going to bother this human being here who knows the city very well? So many times they'll turn left, and then they'll turn right, trying to get their cell phone orientation. And I'm like, I'm here for you. But no, they'd rather use that.
Yeah, well, that would be me not having a good sense of direction. Also, Tommy, thank you. Mayor Mobolade, your thoughts on that? Just sort of, sometimes it's hard to coax people to actually interact with the world if they don't want to instinctively.
Yeah, I take a position that in fact I'm empathetic towards our young people. I feel like a lot of that has I say parents have a huge responsibility in this. And so part of that is the product of the upbringing. Sometimes we adults have mimicked that same behavior that they're copying. And even as a parent of young kids, I have to be very purposeful in ensuring that I'm not on my phone all the time whenever I'm home. And so we have to be intentional about putting those boundaries, when they can use the cell phone, when not to use the cell phone, as we raise the next generation of leaders.
Let me give you the last word, David J., and ask you this question. If someone is listening to this and saying, well, I have 500 friends on social media, but I do feel lonely sometimes. What would be the one piece of advice you would give that person about how they can break out of that loneliness?
So one thing that Vivek Murthy talked about earlier is the difference between social isolation and loneliness. Social isolation is not having friends. Loneliness is not having agency over your relationships, not being able to evolve them in the way that you want to. You can have a lot of friends, but if they're not fitting your life, then you need a way to create and evolve the relationships you have. So I would say my one piece of advice, approach your relationships with intention. The same way you think about dating, the same way you think about having a career, think about what are the intentional steps you're taking to build a really thriving community that helps you grow and be the person you want to be.
Well, a great note to end on. David J., author of the book Relationality, and Colorado Springs Mayor Yemi Mobolade. Thank you both so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's fantastic to be here, Jeremy.
Next week, we're going to be doing some thinking about the election results and specifically examining what the Democrats need to do to better reach working class Americans. I saw, for example, that the very working class city of Fall River, Massachusetts, went for a Republican for the first time since the 1950s. So we're going to be joined by the former Secretary of State of Missouri, Jason Kander, and Jane Cleave, who is the chair of the Nebraska Democratic Party. That's next week. Of course, you can call us anytime at 844-4MIDDLE. That is 844-464-3353. Or you can reach out at listentothemiddle.com. And please, while you're there, sign up for our free weekly newsletter. The Middle is brought to you by Long Nook Media, distributed by Illinois Public Media in Urbana, Illinois, and produced by Harrison Patino, Danny Alexander, Sam Burmas-Dawes, and John Barth. Our intern is Annika Deschler. Our technical director is Jason Croft. Thanks to our podcast audience and the more than 420 public radio stations and SiriusXM that are making it possible for people across the country to listen to The Middle. I'm Jeremy Hobson, and I will talk to you next week.
Over the last couple years, didn't we learn that the folding chair was invented by Black people because of what happened in Alabama?
The Montgomery Brawl.
This Black History Month, the podcast Selective Ignorance with Mandy B unpacks Black history and culture with comedy, clarity, and conversations that shake the status quo. The Crown Act in New York was signed in July of 2019, and that is a bill that was passed to prohibit discrimination based on hairstyles associated with race. To hear this and more, listen to Selective Ignorance with Mandy B from the Black Effect Podcast Network on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
1969. Malcolm and Martin are gone. America is in crisis. And at Morehouse College, the students make their move.
These students, including a young Samuel L. Jackson, locked up the members of the Board of Trustees, including Martin Luther King Sr. It's the true story of protest and rebellion in Black American history that you'll never forget. I'm Hans Charles.
I'm Menelik Lumumba.
Listen to The A Building on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
I actually drop better when I'm high. It heightens my senses, calms me down. If anything, I'm more careful. Honestly, it just helps me focus.
That's probably what the driver who killed a 4-year-old told himself. And now he's in prison. You see, no matter what you tell yourself, if you feel different, you drive different. So if you're high, just don't drive. Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Saturday, May 2nd, country's biggest stars will be in Austin, Texas at our 2026 iHeart Country Festival presented by Capital One. Tickets are on sale now. Get yours before they sell out at Ticketmaster.com. That's Ticketmaster.com.
When segregation was a law, one mysterious Black club owner, Charlie Fitzgerald, had his own rules.
Segregation in the day, integration at night.
It was like stepping in another world.
Was he a businessman, a criminal, a hero?
Charlie was an example of power. They had to crush him.
Charlie's Place, from Atlas Obscura and Visit Myrtle Beach. Listen to Charlie's Place on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed Human.